Alright, Algebra 1, we're here for our third lesson today, which is writing an inequality given its graph. So let's go ahead to these notes and let's look at this box at the top. So it's giving us the steps of how to do this process. So step 1 is to identify the location of the circle, meaning what number is it on. The next thing is to determine the type of inequality symbol that we're going to use. And the biggest difference is if it's a less than, greater than, or the equal to. It determines if it has the equal to or not. And then the last step is to figure out which direction it's going, so which number is greater, which one's less than, all that jazz. So let's look at number 1. So when we do number 1, our first question is, the point is at the number, and we can see in example 1, it's at 5. And we can see for our second part that it's a closed circle. And then the numbers that are included, which means the numbers under the blue line, are definitely less than 5. Because we're doing 4, 3, 2, 1. Those are all less than 5. So when we write this answer, we're starting with x and we're starting with 5. Because that's the number that's included in that graph. Okay, we know that it is a closed circle, so it has that equal to line under it. And then lastly, the numbers we already know is less than 5. So our less than symbol is facing towards our 5. So here's our inequality. Well, the next thing I want to do is write this in interval notation, just to have some good practice. So if this number line kept going, we could see that it would go all the way to negative infinity. And if it kept going in this direction, it would go all the way to positive infinity. Okay, so if we write that, we're starting with where our line begins, which we see this blue line, it kind of starts in that negative infinity direction. So that's what we're starting with, negative infinity. And this blue line goes all the way to number 5. So 5 is our first number. Well, now let's figure out our parentheses and our brackets. So anytime we use infinity, that's going to be a parenthesis. And keep in mind, when we're doing interval notation with inequalities, it all determines the open dot or closed dot. And because this is a closed dot, that means we're going to use a bracket. Okay, so there's my interval notation, and there's my inequality. Those are the two things I wanted to find for this problem. Well, let's do that same process for number 2. All right, so the point is at number -4. We can see that it is an open circle, and the blue line, so the numbers that are included are, let's see, less than -4. Because keep in mind, it's just using -5, but we know that it's going to -6, -7, -8, and all of those are smaller than -4. So remember, when we start this, we're doing x, and we're doing -4. We know that it's an open circle, so it doesn't have the line under it. And we know that the numbers are less than, so this inequality should say x is less than -4. Now let's write an interval notation. Remember, we've got negative infinity on this side, infinity on this side. We can see our blue line starts all the way over here, and it goes all the way to 4. So what that means is I'm starting at negative infinity, and I'm going all the way to -4. I have an open circle, so that means that's a parenthesis, and infinities always deal with parentheses. Alright, example number 3. This point is at 0. And it is an open circle, and the numbers are greater than. Because if we have 0, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can see all of those numbers are bigger or greater than 0. So the next thing, we've got our answer. We've got x and we have 0. Well, if we know that x is greater than 0, that's what we need to put. So x is greater than 0, and it does not have that equal to line because it is an open circle on this graph. So here's our first page of notes. Let's go ahead and go on to our next page. Alright, so we've got 4 problems here, but the first thing I want you guys to do is cross off the second one because it's the exact same as the first one. So everybody makes mistakes. Alright, so after we have done that, let's go ahead and zoom in on the first one on this page. So you can see that the questions aren't given in these problems. So we just have to kind of either follow those questions if you want to, or kind of do it in our head. So remember, we're always starting with our x, and we're starting with the number that our point is on, and in this problem it's -1. So after we have those two things, we can see that this is a closed circle, and because it's a closed circle, that means we're going to have that equal to line under our inequality. And the next thing I got to do is kind of analyze these numbers that are under my blue line. So I've got -2, -3, -4, -5. All of those are less than -1. So our inequality should say x is less than or equal to -1. Okay, let's keep going. Jump into our third one. Alright, so what we have here is we've got our x and the number that it's being used, which is just 1 in this case. We know that it's an open circle, meaning there's no equal to sign on it. And then the numbers that are being included, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all bigger than 1. So our inequality should say x is greater than 1. There's no equal to because there's that open circle. Well, let's go ahead and write this one in interval notation. So we know that -infinity is over here, positive infinity is over here. So this blue line starts at 1. So there's going to be our first number in our interval notation. And it's going to go all the way to infinity. So there's our two, components of interval notation. Well, now let's look at parentheses or brackets. Well, with our 1, I have that open circle. So that means I'm doing a parenthesis. And then I have infinity, which is always a parenthesis. So here's my interval notation. And here is my inequality. Alright, we've got one more left in today's problems. So remember, we're starting with x. So I've got x, and then I've got the number that's being used, which in this case is 4. And the next one I've got to figure out, it's an open circle, so because it's that open circle, that means there's no equal to sign with my inequality. So now let's look at the numbers that are being used under that blue line. So I start at 4, I've got 3, 2, 1, 0. All of those are less than x, or less than 4, excuse me. So that's what I want to write in my inequality, is x is less than 4. And in this problem, we can see that it's not going to have that equal to sign because it's an open dot. I'm just making sure you guys totally understand that part of it. Well, let's go ahead and finish this up by writing an interval notation. So keep in mind our -infinity is over here, and our infinity is over here. We can see that blue line starts at that -infinity number. And we can see that it goes all the way to 4. And as you can see, that 4 has that open circle, meaning it's going to be a parenthesis. And anytime we work with infinity, it's a parenthesis. Okay, I really hope you guys are getting a good review on interval notation with all this stuff, because it is super, super important. Alright, so we are done with writing the inequality given a number line. So let's go ahead and check off number 3. Go ahead and do your worksheet. If you have any questions, please, please, please let me know. Adios!